undying and unequivocal devotion to us. I know for a lot of you it probably meant parking 2 miles away and hiking up a hill to get here, or at the very least taking the shuttle to get here, so we really appreciate it. To my classmates, our day's finally here. It seems like just yesterday we were undergraduate students nervously vying for a spot in this class, interviewing, hoping that we would eventually get to sit in these seats today. Seems like just yesterday we were PT1s struggling to figure out the different parts of the brachial nerve plexus when really it just looked like a bunch of cooked spaghetti noodles. Seems like just yesterday we were PT2s sitting through day after day of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. classes wishing we understood any of Bob's jokes. Seems like just yesterday we were PT3s embarking on our clinical journeys, some of us not knowing that we would probably be getting caught up in borderline Ponzi schemes in Florida. It seems like just yesterday we were almost graduates sitting for our board exam and forgetting in the middle of it what the chest compression rate is for infant CPR, as if of all the things that we learned here, that was the most important thing they could test us on. And here we are today. This is the day we've been waiting for 3 years, 7, 10, 15 years. Class of 2018, I'd like to take you down a trip, take you for a trip down memory lane to remind you of the things we learned, the things we won't forget, and the things we know won't ever be the same. So to start off, things we learned. We learned that Pat loves Diet Pepsi. We learned that Pat really loves one word, and it is bolus. And we did learn a bolus of information from her. We learned that Grace has a really particular and kind of creepy infatuation with hands for some reason. We learned that Dawn has a really uncanny ability to make some of the most boring and dry information ever, research and statistical analysis, actually really interesting and applicable to clinical practice. We learned from Grace and Megan that the answer to basically any "what would we do in this situation" question is always, it depends. We learned that Bob has a whole library of really terrible and sometimes hilarious dad jokes. We learned of Sarah's phenomenal rap skills and that she apparently has a recording studio in her closet at home, so that's pretty cool. We learned pretty quickly to pick up the nuances of Dr. Norman's New York accent, and that when he told us in lab to put our hands on the as-is, he wasn't being crude, he was describing a common anatomical landmark. It's ASIS, for those of you that are wondering. Apparently it's different in New York. So while we learned a whole lot about how to be a PT and treat patients, I guess we also learned a whole lot about our professors and who are now our colleagues. Next, the things we won't forget. We won't forget our first day in anatomy lab and the subsequent 4 months of struggling through memorizing literally every structure in the human body and wondering how exactly the intricacies of the large intestine's blood supply has anything to do with physical therapy. We won't forget our first ever Christmas party after surviving first semester and the relief we felt to have actually survived it. We won't forget all the times we went to Barrett's, whether it was walking down the street in between classes for a beer or 2 or 3, or the late nights playing sand volleyball and avoiding studying for our next test. We won't forget our makeshift slip and slide and flippy cup games, only to show up to lab the next day with bruises and welts all over and having to explain to our professors what exactly happened last night. We won't forget Dan always being late, so much so that he missed receiving his most likely to be late to graduation award for, you guessed it, being late. Dan, did you make it on time today? Nice. We won't forget the intense debates of which male and female in our class would be most likely to win the Hunger Games, should society come down to it. We won't forget going to lunch meetings and random speakers just for the free food. We won't forget Caleb's impression of Pat, complete with the Diet Pepsi and all of her favorite sayings. We won't forget Jordan's inability to say the word rural, which just happened yesterday. We won't forget Josh's Hawaiian t-shirts at every social gathering, or Vince's trucker hat with the mullet. We won't forget Brian's obnoxious comments, Neely's sarcasm, Natalie's honesty and deep insight, or Dana's overinvestment in class games to the point she was willing to shout borderline expletives across the room. So, at the end of the day, even though we may forget a large bit of the didactic work we did here, we surely won't forget each other and the times we had together. Finally, things we know won't ever be the same. It's strange to think about how much we've grown up here in 3 short years. We learned about some things we were passionate for and some things we could really probably care less about. We learned about ourselves as people. We fell in love, we got engaged, married, got pregnant, had kids. We had good and bad clinical experiences, and we survived each one of them. We experienced high highs and low lows. We made lifelong friends, future colleagues, and business partners. Some of us will head to residency. Some of us will probably work as PTs until we're 70. Some of us might dip out of the profession entirely in search of other endeavors. It's been a heck of a ride, but my point today is this. The trajectory of our lives has changed and will continue to change, but things won't ever be the same because of the things we know, the skills we have, and the passions we hold. Please excuse the Spider-Man geek in me when I say this. With great power comes great responsibility. We now hold both the power and the responsibility to provide exceptional and compassionate care to our fellow man. Things we know truly won't ever be the same. In conclusion, the days were slow, and sometimes painfully slow, but the years were fast. We did it, friends, we made it. You know, there's that old stereotypical thing that commencement speakers sometimes say about how commencement doesn't actually mean an end to something, it's actually a beginning. And while that's true and commencement does mean new beginnings, can I please just say, for the sake of the 47 of us who've been in school for like 20 years now, this commencement finally means end. We can finally say we're done with school. We couldn't have done it without the love and support of our friends and family. We couldn't have done it without our fantastic faculty members who so passionately taught and mentored and molded us, and we couldn't have done it without each other. Class of 2018, if I could leave you with 3 short pieces of advice straight from some of our favorite faculty members: motion is lotion, treat the impairments, and don't sweat the small stuff. It was an honor to serve as your class president. I love you guys. Congrats.